Whenever you attempt to solve a brain teaser, make sense of an observation, or tackle a problem in math, science, or life in general using logical premises, you might often hit some obstacle. This obstacle is commonly known as a paradox. It happens when, despite your best efforts to understand a certain logic and reason through it, you still find yourself stuck in a loop, unable to resolve the contradiction it is implying. In today's video, we'll revisit some life paradoxes and explore how they function, intending to get a dose of logic into our understanding. So stay with us until the end of the video, because you don't want to miss out on this one. Let's get going. In your journey through life, you've probably encountered some moments where a specific knowledge seems to intertwine with ignorance. It's where simplicity appears absurd, and where truths feel intuitively right, but turn out wrong upon closer inspection. These curious intersections aren't just confined to harmless brain teasers and puzzles, because they often share profound truths about the way you think and the boundaries of your understanding. To really understand what we're discussing today, it's important to start with a clear definition. So let's break it down. The word paradox traces back to the Greek term paradoxon, which essentially means something that's distinct from our opinion. Nowadays, we often throw around this term in all sorts of contexts, from literature to math, science to philosophy, and even in everyday discussions about perception, economics, and more loosely related topics. It's become a versatile term that pops up in various fields, and each time it brings a hint of contradiction or complexity to the table. But when you try to look into its contemporary philosophy, a paradox emerges when you start with a bunch of ideas that you're pretty sure are true, or at least you think they are. Then, you meticulously analyze and track these ideas using precise, consistent logic, expecting to reach a very logical conclusion. But sometimes, the conclusion can turn out to be unexpected and can throw some challenges to what you already know. It's like following a treasure map, only to find out the X marks the spot in a place you never imagined. Paradoxes shake up our understanding of truth and reasoning, and at the same time can remind us that the journey of discovery is rarely straightforward. Let's use the book The Ways of Paradox and Other Essays by philosopher and logician Willard Van Orman Quine as our guide further in this video, since it can bring us to the deeper part of the world of paradoxes. We'll break the terms down into three neat categories: falsitical, veridical, and antinomy. We're using this the way we're just organizing a messy closet in a section so we can have everything seem to make a little more sense. Let's discuss the first category, the falsitical. Using the classic example from ancient Greece, which is the arrow paradox, courtesy of the philosopher Zeno of Elea. In our example, Zeno argues that as an arrow flies through the air, it's actually at rest. How does he justify this mind-bending claim? Well, he breaks it down like this. At any single moment in time, the arrow occupies a specific position in space, right? So, in that exact moment, it can't be moving to where it already is, nor can it be moving to where it isn't, because, well, no time has passed yet. So, Zeno concludes, in each of these tiny moments, the arrow isn't moving at all. And if you add up all these moments, you get no motion whatsoever? Crazy, right? It sounds kinda convincing, especially back in Zeno's day. But of course, we know better now. Arrows do fly. Now, let's try to understand why this paradox falls under the category of falsitical, as described by Quine. It seems true when viewed through a certain lens of logic and understanding, but they trip over their faulty assumption. Firstly, Zeno assumes that time can be divided into infinitely small zero-duration moments. But time can't be sliced into nothingness. If you try to divide any measure of time by zero, you'll always end up with, well, zero. That's like trying to bake a cake with zero ingredients. It just doesn't work. So if we agree that time exists in some form, then this premise falls flat. Second, Zeno's definition of motion misses the mark because it isn't just about where an object is at a single instant, it's about how it moves between different points over time. By focusing solely on isolated moments, Zeno overlooks the essence of motion itself. Sure, Zeno's arrows might spark some deep metaphysical musings about time, but when it comes down to physics, With the right perspective and enough information, the paradox crumbles. Now let's look at the second category, veridical paradoxes. Say you're in a small town with just one barber. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But when it's thrown with a twist of Bertrand Russell's barber paradox, the setup might change for you. The said barber shaves all and only the men who don't shave themselves. Sounds simple enough, but how does the barber shave himself? If he does, then he's in the group of men who shave themselves. But if he's in that group, then he shouldn't be shaving himself according to the barber's rule. But if he doesn't shave himself, then he belongs to the group that he's supposed to shave. See the problem here? It's like trying to solve a riddle with no right answer. The more you think about it, the more you realize it's a dead end. This is what makes it a veridical paradox. It's not just a mind bender, it's logically impossible once you look at it deeper. It shows that sometimes what seems obvious or simple at first glance can lead to many contradictions upon closer look. Now, let's have the third and final category, antinomies. This is the kind of paradox that probably pops into your head when you hear the word paradox. According to Quine, antinomies are the ultimate brain teasers because they manage to reach a contradictory or downright absurd conclusion even when you're using true premises and solid logic. They're like the rebels of the paradox world that can flip any logic. These paradoxes are so mind-bending that they can throw your whole understanding of reality into chaos. And get this, they can be as short as a 3 or 4 word statement. Take for example the classic, "This statement is false." Wrap your head around that for a second. If the statement is true, then it's false, but if it's false, then it's true. It's like chasing your tail in an endless loop of contradiction. There's no escape, no loophole to go through. These paradoxes show us that sometimes, even the most basic statements can lead to a tangled mess of confusion that defies all reason. In essence, the 3 categories of paradox, falsitical, veridical, and antinomies, each offer distinct perspectives on the nature of contradiction. Falsitical paradoxes deceive us with seemingly logical conclusions based on faulty premises or flawed reasoning. They lure everyone into believing something that appears true at first glance until closer inspection. Veridical paradoxes, on the other hand, present situations where the logical conclusion is genuinely impossible, even when starting with true premises and consistent reasoning. They challenge assumptions about what can be logically deduced and demonstrate the limitations of understanding. Finally, antinomies serve as the ultimate mindbenders by defying all accepted laws of logic and reason. They lead into a labyrinth of contradictions from which there seems to be no escape. Each category offers its unique twist on the concept of paradox, and has diverse ways in which understanding of truth and logic can be challenged and expanded. Existence in all its complexity seems to be mysterious, doesn't it? Back in 400 BC, thinkers like Zeno engaged with paradoxes that seemed unsolvable, yet as time marched on and knowledge evolved, what once seemed like unbreakable contradictions turned out to be nothing more than flawed assumptions. Sometimes, it's not about missing information, but rather the quirks of our brains and the limitations of language. Paradoxes serve as reminders that reality is far more complex than we can ever fully grasp. And maybe that's okay. If you've enjoyed this video, give this channel some support by clicking on the subscribe button and sharing your thoughts in the comment section down below. Stay updated on our upcoming content by hitting the notification bell so you'll always get notified on our next one. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.